Hello, I'm Susan Kimball joining you from the Portland Press Herald studio. We're catching up this week with our political reporters to hear their insights with Election Day less than a week away. When it comes to independent Eliot Cutler, there's a lot to talk about, given his announcement on Wednesday that Mainers should vote their conscience if they think he can't win, but that he is staying in the race. Eric Russell has spent a lot of time on the campaign trail with Eliot Cutler, and I think, Eric, when you see an announcement like that, there's always a strategy behind it. What was your reaction?
I honestly don't know what their strategy is. Certainly all the polls, all the public polling that have come out, even in the time after the debates, which he put a lot of stock in the debates. He said, if I just do well in these debates, it's going to put me over the edge. And it certainly hasn't, at least in the polls that we've seen. And I think he made an acknowledgement of that today in saying he's a realist. He sees the race. He knows that it's an extremely long shot for him to win. And so he's sort of releasing his voters, but at the same time, he didn't want to use that phrase. He was very uncomfortable with that phrase. So he said, I'm staying in the race, I'm not dropping out, but if you don't think I can win, certainly vote for somebody else.
I'm not standing down, but I hope their consciences will compel them to vote for me, and if their fears compel them to vote for someone else, I can't stop them, and I wouldn't suggest that I could stop.
You had used the word earlier, puzzling, and I think you're right.
It was puzzling. I think a lot of people, reporters who went to this press conference, were expecting him to be more declarative about what his plans were. And he wasn't. He was very, I think, in some ways, he was trying to have it both ways. He's staying in the race. He hopes he gets support. He still thinks there's a small sliver of chance he can win. But he also acknowledges, again, that that's a real long shot. And he wants people to be able to, as he said, vote their conscience.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about money. He hasn't been spending a lot on television ads. He says he's in it to win it, and yet you look at his spending over the last couple of weeks and think, well, not so much. He had gone a little bit dark, as they say, in the last few weeks, even post-debate. He hadn't spent a lot of money in ads, and he hasn't had a ton of money. I mean, certainly he's been outspent by Congressman Michoud and Governor LePage, but recently this week his campaign did make a $75,000 ad buy, and also a political action committee that is supporting him called Campaign for Maine. They made a $100,000 ad buy. So we're going to see ads featuring Eliot Cutler over the next week and through the weekend. 4 years ago, he was at a much better place in terms of polling than he is now, surging in 2010.
That's right. At this point, and even earlier than this point in 2010, he had already passed Democrat Libby Mitchell in most of the polls. And a lot of people think if the election were held a week later, he would have continued that surge and maybe overtaken Governor LePage. It didn't happen. But I think what happened this time around is Cutler saw the race dynamics the same as they were 4 years ago. And they're really just not. And I don't know if he misjudged the electorate or if there are a lot of different things at play. Certainly there's a much stronger effort to coalesce around Congressman Michoud this year than the Democrats did around Libby Mitchell in 2010.
What's your read on what's going to happen on the campaign trail with Cutler over the next few days?
Well, he's going to keep campaigning. He's got a full schedule tomorrow and into the weekend and through Election Day. It'll be interesting to see how people react to him given his announcement today that if his supporters don't think he can win, they should vote for somebody else. I'm curious to see, and I'll try to be with him as much as I can, but I'm curious to see how people react to that. I was with him a little bit this morning, and he seemed a little bit more resigned than I've seen him on the campaign trail, and I wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of that, a little bit more laid back, a little less, assertive. Maybe not, but.
Great. Well, so interesting, and it's going to be quite an election night.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you.